to New Hampshire Unscripted with your host, Ray Dudley.
So, good to talk to you again.
I think it's been almost a year.
Yeah, pretty darn close.
Yeah, because I remember we had a talk in 2020, maybe a month after the pandemic started.
Yeah, a lot's happened since then.
That's putting it lightly.
Give me an update, baby. What is going on up in Lincoln?
Up in Lincoln, New Hampshire. Okay, well, we a couple things. First of all, we shut down for 2020, as did everyone, pretty much. Yep. It just there was a couple of reasons. Obviously everybody knows the dangers of the virus itself, but it wasn't. Theaters have very limited finances and very limited resources,
right?
And so the idea of using that money and those resources to produce, knowing that we would only have minimal audiences, just wasn't a very good idea in our mind. So we chose not.
Didn't you try to do a couple?
Well, we didn't produce. There's a difference between producing and presenting.
Right.
Producing is far more time expensive and also much more expensive, right? Because you have to hire actors, you have to rehearse them. It takes weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We presented, which means we brought in one act a week for about 5 weeks. So that means we brought in like a comedian. And then the next week we had like a 3-piece band. And then, you know what I mean? So it was that kind of stuff. So those are far less commitment on our part. They still didn't make money, for the record. But it was good. We were glad we did it. We were happy to be able to provide some kind of entertainment, give these people some work. And also,
and it provides momentum, right? It keeps you.
It absolutely. It keeps our name alive. It also lets us dip our foot in, which I think is important. It's important to dip your toe in and kind of understand what's going on.
Right.
We are a 260 seat theater with the governor's restrictions of 6 foot distancing that brought us down to roughly 80 to 90 available seats. Of 80 or 90 seats, we could really on average only sell about 40.
Jeez.
And that is not a Gene's Playhouse thing. That was pretty much true across the board with every theater we spoke with. So, that was just crazy, right? We had comedians, like we always bring Justin McKinney every year. We have a couple bigger name people that we bring in. Justin normally sells over 200 tickets easily.
Jeez.
And we thought, well, we can only sell 90. Surely he's going to sell out at 90. 65.
Man. Well, there's his bus money home.
It just showed how people's confidence levels weren't where they needed to be last summer, which again is not a criticism, totally understandable.
Yep.
It felt, the funny thing is that the town of Lincoln and North Woodstock had more people vacationing there last summer than in 2019.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not joking. And restaurants and hotels, if they could find the help, that was the problem, right? Is that nobody could, because they had to deal with the guidelines and things like that. So because of those, they weren't doing as well as they could have, but they actually were getting more interest and more attention and more bookings and people trying to get service from them than in 2019.
Because that's what happened. Fascinating. Oh, good.
No, yeah, it is fascinating. It caused pressure on our board to be like, hey, there's all these vacationers. Why aren't you open? Why aren't you doing something? So we said, okay, we will. And we did, and nobody came.
Yeah.
So what that really told us, which I think is interesting, is that people had their big vacations canceled. So they decided to come up north to Lincoln or North Woodstock for their smaller vacations. Mm. And they went there specifically to do outdoor things.
Yeah.
And so so when it came to coming into the theater, they weren't feeling, a lot of them were not feeling comfortable. And that's fine. That was really important for us to know, So we tried our hand at it. We tried a few things and then we stopped and we decided to just stick with online content and to do, just use the time to do, spring cleaning. And you know what I mean? We did a lot of work on the theater, both indoors and out. We restructured some of our business stuff. We got a new ticketing software. We did a lot of, we just decided to use the time to do a lot of things that didn't exactly cost a lot of money. They just required a lot of time and energy, which we never seem to have, when we're producing.
Right. Hey, how did your Christmas online Christmas thing go?
It went great. So
Good.
It was so crazy. So we decided, we were having an internal debate about whether or not to produce a Christmas show, right? Because, as I'm sure everybody was, everybody was sort of on the fence about like, well, everybody wants to feel normal for the holidays. Are they going to come? Are they not going to come? If we're doing everything safely, if we're limiting, the number of people coming in, we've got our systems in place to keep everything safe. It's a small cast. It was only 5, you were in it the year before, it's a small show.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we were like, we could feasibly do this safely. The question is, will anyone come?
Mm-hmm.
And so inevitably we decided not to. We decided it was not worth it. It was not worth the time and energy. It was not worth the risk, health-wise, financial risk, all of that. So that's when we came up with this idea to do it virtually. We thought, let's take some clips, let's videotape some of the parts of the show, and let's put together four mini series of 4 short, video shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Each one was only like 4 to 8 minutes, and they'll each have like a part of the story and a song or two, and they'll just and we'll release one every Monday of December, leading right up to the Monday before Christmas. And we won't charge for it. We're not going to do streaming costs. We're just going to put it out there. It's a goodwill gift. We just want people to see it. We want people to see us. We want people to have a little bit of holiday cheer. We want, we just, from our conversations with other venues, people weren't really making a lot of money on streaming.
Yeah.
They had tried it. They had tried charging for it. And the amount of money they were getting was not significant enough that it was going to make or break anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we just decided, let's just do this. Let's do it as a gift. Let's build goodwill, and perhaps it will lead to some donations, which would be fabulous. But either way, it's just about getting our word out. As you said, it's about the momentum, right? Keeping our name alive, feeling like we're still entertaining. It was so that's what we did. And we, it was a crazy day because the cast had all done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did it all in one day. We brought them in.
Wow.
We reviewed everything in the morning, masked, distanced, in the auditorium. So we had loads of, only 5 performers, and we had loads of room. We had the garage door open. All this freezing air was coming in. We did it as safely as possible. Then we put them on the stage again, 6-foot distance, and in like a circle, like facing out, so that their sound was not going towards each other. They were facing away. They took their masks off, and they vocally recorded all the songs. So all the songs were pre-recorded ahead of time.
Oh, really?
Yes. And this is the reason we did that, because then we took a break. We had lunch. We cleaned. We disinfected. We had one of those crazy spray pumps.
Yeah.
Disinfected the whole theater.
Wow.
They got into costume and they came back, and then we filmed. Now, we did keep actors 6-foot distanced while filming,
mm-hmm.
but we didn't think that was enough for them to be singing at each other live.
Right.
So instead of singing at each other live, they were lip syncing to the pre-recorded music and vocals that they had already audio recorded. That's how we did it completely safe. And it was just a crazy, crazy marathon day. We were there for 14 hours or something. And we got the whole thing done. And then we had 1 week to edit the first video, and then a week, and I just kept editing and getting them out there. But we were shocked at how much attention we got on them. It was really nice.
Good.
It was really nice.
Yeah, the numbers were good.
Numbers were huge. I mean, they got a thing like 40,000 hits and stuff. I mean,
What?
It was crazy. Oh yeah, it was nuts. And we were getting tons and tons of messages and thank you so much. This is amazing. We love this. When are you opening? What's your normal schedule? I mean, it was really shocking how much.
I guess the Ukraine really loves Christmas, right?
Apparently, we were just really surprised at how much goodwill we got from it. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. And also now we've got all this beautiful footage to be able to advertise the live production in 2021, which was another thought process behind all this, is how do we, how can we not only give this as a gift, but then also draw attention to the fact that if you like what you see, come see it live next year.
Yeah. Brilliant marketing idea. Brilliant.
It kind of worked out. Yeah. So I think the money piece of it, and I get it. I mean, every theater has to do what works for them. And every theater has a different financial situation. But I just, from what we talked to multiple companies who did not really make a lot on streaming and charging for tickets. So we just decided that this was not about money. This was about keeping the name alive, goodwill, marketing, etc. And we'll figure out the financial piece some other way.
So I know you can't and wouldn't give specifics, but how are you guys situated financially now? Are you okay? I mean,
we are.
Good,
we're okay. Good. We're going to make it through. We made some pretty good decisions, I think, early on. We did have to, I mean, there was a period where we decided to furlough some staff in order to, early on, in order to get through and make everything work. And we were able to save on certain costs. We also, some people don't know yet, we had just gotten rid of our mortgage.
I know, yeah.
We literally got rid of it in December of 2019. And the building shut down in January.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
The plan was to be shut down from January through May. So we were already situated with overhead expenses at their bare minimum. So while we saved a little bit of money through furloughing until we kind of got a lay of the land, right? Like we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if there was going to be relief aid. We didn't know how things were going to pan out. So we decided the best thing was to do a little bit of furloughing just to get a grasp on where everything was going to be. And then once we figured that out, we were able to apply for the correct relief funds. Again, we saved on this. We did donation drives. We had a huge fundraising drive called Just the Ticket over the summer, where we had people donate what would have been the cost of their ticket if they were going to come see the show. And we had them submit a photo of themselves, and we plastered the photos all over the seats in the auditorium, took photos, and that was a big marketing draw as well. So between donations, amazing corporate sponsorships who did not pull their funds, even though we didn't do the season. I mean, they just wanted to support us, and the relief funds and and I think just the choices we made in terms of keeping overhead costs as low as possible. We made it over the hump of 2020. And now we are kind of exactly where we need to be in terms of producing for 2021. So, and we're being very conservative for 2021. I mean, 2021, we are planning to open. It's just not it's not a normal year, of course, which it isn't for anybody, but we are, so we did make it over the financial hump, and we are in okay shape. And I think that's been the hardest thing, because I mean, obviously for everybody, it was hard to get over the hump, and it was very scary because nobody knew what was going to happen.
Right.
But I think, we're kind of at a place now where we need, that's why it was so important to open, to announce our shows for 2021 and to let people know we are producing this summer, because I think there were a lot of question marks, and people were like, we love this theater, but are we donating to something that's a sinking ship? Are we donating to the Titanic, or are we donating to something that is going to keep producing? And of course, we wanted people to know that yes, we are okay. We've figured it out. We are okay. We are producing. It's going to be great, and we're going to get back to normal. So we're hoping that now that we've announced the season, we've announced that we're moving forward, that will take some peace of mind off of our patrons and our sponsors and our donors.
Before we get into your season, I just wanted to say how remarkable, what a test of leadership this past year has been, right? Most folks come on, you think you're going to roll through, have another nice year, do your plays, and, bank whatever you can bank, and then boom. I mean, this was a real test, and I'm not knocking any theaters that had to close down, but for those who have been able to stay afloat and hang in there, that their whole teams, hats off to everybody who's been able to accomplish that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, every theater is different. North Country Center for the Arts at Jean's Playhouse, we're a little bit of the underdog, right? We're small. We're a little bit of a smaller operation. We have, when I came in 2017, we had to restructure. We had to figure out a way to make more money. We had to continue to build our quality of production. That was kind of some of the goals that were set when I arrived. And so consequently, we are lucky because we have a smaller staff to support. We have, we own our building now. We have lower overhead expenses. I think of some of these venues that are in a different situation than us. The Palace Theater, the Capitol Center for the Arts, Portsmouth Music Hall, Seacoast Rep, even Winnipesaukee, they have much larger staff than we do. It's a testament to their leadership, to all of their leaderships, to have kept them afloat, because they all have very different situations that they've had to deal with. And admittedly, our situation was, because of where we were and what we had done, I think our hump was a little smaller than some theaters,
Yeah. But still, I don't want to minimize how you got there. I mean, the whole mortgage. I mean, seriously, what was going on behind the scenes prior to this says a lot for what was going on up there. I really think we
were already dealing with how to redevelop this theater and how to get over a financial hump and how to solve problems. We've been dealing with that since the building opened, quite frankly, but definitely since 2017 when I arrived. And we've made really amazing progress between 2017 and 2019. And boy, as they say, it's all in the timing.
Yeah, right.
we solved some of those issues right in the nick of time.
Yeah, that's my point. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. So when I reached out to you for an update for this year, you mentioned that you were on a committee with like Neil and some other folks.
Yeah.
So what's going on with that?
So, and I want to be totally upfront. I've only been on this committee for a little bit of time compared to Neil and others who have been on much longer. I was asked to join last year over the summer, and that's when they originally came up with the guidelines and, at least their guideline recommendations. Mm-hmm. That's what this committee is. It's essentially an arts-based subcommittee of the governor's task force, and so the idea is that we get together, we create recommendation guidelines, recommendation changes, things like that, submit them to the governor's task force, who then votes on them and gives them to the Department of Health and gets the final ball rolling.
And this I was not part of the table, right? I mean, before the arts were kind of at the back of the bus.
Absolutely. And Nikki from Capitol Center for the Arts is actually now on the task force as well, on the governor's task force. That makes a big difference for the arts. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, I didn't join originally because we were so busy last summer. And quite frankly, we knew we weren't going to be producing. So it's not that I didn't care what the guidelines were. Of course I cared, but I knew they were in good hands. And I recognized that they weren't going to affect Jean's Playhouse immediately. Mm-hmm. We just had so much else on our plates. Again, we are a smaller staff, so we are, so I did not join initially. And they all did some wonderful work. Neil, Matt Cahoon, Andrew Pinard, there's lots of great people on that committee. Joe Gleason, they all did a lot of the preliminary work, and that all was really great. They came up with the guidelines. Now, just because what they came up with and what actually turned into the guidelines aren't exactly the same thing, mm-hmm. but they at least created the foundational work. Then when I heard that they were reconvening to change the guidelines and try to make new ones for this summer, that's when I expressed interest in joining, because I did want to be a part of that, as I am planning to produce this summer. Mm-hmm. So I'm fairly new to the committee, but I kind of got in right in the nick of time to at least give my 2 cents on where the guidelines were at. It's interesting. We submitted the guidelines, just since last Thursday, so probably you haven't interviewed anybody since then, the governor did release the new guidelines, and it was actually a bit of a debacle, if I'm being honest, because Yeah, the guidelines that we submitted did not get accepted in their entirety. They did by the governor's task force. However, when they went to DHHS and all of that, they got changed over. And one of the big changes that we wanted, right now, the current guidelines in the state of New Hampshire are that we have to distance our audience. We have to distance our parties 6 feet from each other,
Right.
front, back, side to side. And they are allowed to take their masks off once they are seated. So they have to wear masks coming in, going to the bathroom, exiting, but once they're seated in their proper distance, they can take their masks off.
Okay.
So the big recommendation that was made was let's follow the school model and change that to 3 feet distance, but they have to keep the mask on the whole time.
Okay.
Because quite frankly, most of the theaters had required that anyway, had required the masks, not the 3 feet, but had required the masks. So we were thinking, well, if everybody just keeps their masks on, why can't we do 3 foot distancing? That would make an enormous difference, enormous. Sure. And because the problem with the 6 feet is that it really means you have to skip every other row. And in some cases, I would think in some theaters, it might even be 2 rows if they're really jam-packed together. So by doing 3 feet, that would really make a huge difference. That was the big piece of the puzzle that ended up not making it into the new guidelines.
Did they say why?
We are in the midst of trying to figure that out. It was, but I think it was a two-prong issue here because one, they didn't agree with those guidelines, which that's I mean, that is technically their, that is their prerogative to do that, but we want to know why, and we want to have more discussion about that. But the other part was that the governor then got up on Thursday and said, look, we've done all this amazing stuff for the arts department, for the arts of New Hampshire, when in actuality, they didn't make any changes that help us financially. And the problem is that story got picked up by NPR as well as other. So all of a sudden, now we have to fight this stigma that the arts are fine. Don't worry. The guidelines have been changed and everything's okay. They haven't, and they're not okay. And we actually need to try to get them changed again now before the summer starts in order for us to be able to make more money and not rely on federal aid. And that said, for a lot of theaters, and I had a conversation with somebody just the other day about this, even though we want them to change those guidelines for this summer, for some theaters, it's really hard because this is the time that they're selling tickets, and this is the time that they need to know how many seats they can sell and how many, and what they can do with group sales and what they can. So it was actually not a good situation. It was quite a blow for the arts, even though it was advertised as this win for the arts. It was not, unfortunately. Yeah, so here in New Hampshire, we have a really major problem coming up for this summer because a lot of us are still stuck only selling about 25% of our house.
25%. Is that what it comes to?
That's, 25 to 30, I think, is the average. Yeah. So that is really unfortunate. And we really need to try to get that changed one way or the other. It's possible that the CDC will make changes federally. And, and that may inspire all states to once again look at their guidelines. But again, as I mentioned, unfortunately, the ideal time to make this change has now passed because
that window is either closed or closing quickly.
Right. And so I think inevitably what a lot of theaters are going to have to do is sell a certain amount of tickets and then just reopen more seats if they can once those guidelines change. But for some theaters, so for Gene's Playhouse, that's okay. We can do that because we rely on vacationers. So people don't tend to buy months and months and months in advance. Right. But for other theaters, that's going to be a big problem and they could lose out on those people permanently. Do you know what I mean? They may not be able to resell those seats once they become available. They may. If they
just when you think you got it right, just when you think, man.
It's pretty tough. I mean, it's pretty tough, and I think, I know I can speak for us. When we created our 2021 budget, we decided to, and I know this is going to sound absolutely insane, but we had no choice, and we were trying to be as conservative as possible. We decided to budget with the idea that we are only going to sell 50 tickets per night. Now, hopefully that's not the case. And even under the current guidelines, we can sell up to 80 or 90, but we decided that's what we needed to budget for in order to have realistic expectations and not get, kicked while we're down. The last thing we wanted to do is overestimate and then be in real trouble after the summer,
We've done such a good job.
we've done such a good job making it this far. We can't rely on anything right now.
Yeah. When you announced your current season, I thought I heard a big wail, like a scream, a cry from audiences, because old, bald, fat guys were not in this season.
I know, it's hard. It's hard.
It was.
It's a tricky season, and we had to be really careful, and we had to be really cautious about what we could realistically bring in and what we couldn't. I know I mean, we're really happy with the season. We're really excited. We think that the titles are good and well known in a year where a lot of companies are forced to look at smaller shows that don't have name recognition. Possibly musical reviews, things like that. And those traditionally are not this, at least in our neck of the woods, where we, again, cater to vacationers.
Yeah.
Those don't sell. So
okay. I'll just go collect cans along the roadside.
Right? You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Yes, we had to, a lot of consideration had to go into our season this year, and we had to really think it through. So
tell us what's going on. What's your season look like?
Well, so I'll just tell you the season right off the bat, and then I'll tell you a little bit about why we're doing it and how we came to the conclusion. The right off the bat, the season is we are opening the season with The Sound of Music in concert, and that will be outside.
Nice.
And again in concert. So that's going to be our first show. It's kind of a special event. It's only running 1 week. And then we move into the theater, and we will produce Clue the Musical, Evita, and Forever Plaid, and that's our season. And so we normally we do 5 shows. We've cut down to 4 this year, and 1 is only a 1-week concert, so it's really like 3 in a concert. We decided to do that completely because of just, let's keep this concise, let's keep this tight, let's do it with a smaller staff, let's figure out how to make this work. We started with the 3 shows in the theater, and what we decided is we decided to try to keep our main stage company as small as possible for these 3 shows. We decided we couldn't use any, and this is kind of getting back to your point, we couldn't use any local folk in these 3 shows because of how we're trying to mitigate this issue of COVID. We are building an isolated bubble with our company. Everybody lives in one place. They live in a gigantic 3-story ski lodge, as you know. Right. And so that is our like sanctuary of health and safety. We are testing people. We are, they're signing contracts saying what they can and can't do. We've got eyes on them at all times. I mean, we are ensuring that this bubble stays isolated. And so the problem, and because of that is what allows us now to do these shows with them not staying 6 feet distance and not wearing masks on stage, because they are isolated together. We have mitigated that problem. The minute we add a local person who doesn't live in that bubble, we are now adding risk.
Hey, don't worry. There's a soup kitchen right down the road. I'm okay.
You're good. I don't live in that bubble, which means I will have to wear a mask even though I've actually been vaccinated already, and I am, going to be tested and everything just along with everybody else, because myself and my managing director, we don't live in those premises. We are not technically part of that bubble. Therefore, protocol of how we handle ourselves and wear masks will be completely different than what the company does. Obviously, the company will be wearing masks during certain elements and where they are, but of course, when they go home at night, we don't want them to have masks while they're sleeping, know, right. and they each have a roommate and things like that. So we have to be careful about this. So we're going to have incredibly in-depth protocol. We've obviously already thought a lot of it through, but we can't set any of it until we see what happens by June. So initially we said, okay, we're going to have a small company, and we figured out that magic number would be 8 to start with. So we'll have 8 people. And the reason we picked 8 is because Clue the Musical is 8 actors. All right. Evita, 8 is very small.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So we are bringing in our Che, our Ava, and our Perron, and they will also be tested and added to the bubble for that time.
Mhm.
And that will bring the production to 11.
Got you.
But that's it. That's still very small for that production, but we
Mhm.
are stripping it down. We're reimagining it as more of a Greek chorus with the three principals, and then we will sort of go. We're kind of just creating an industrial, artistic, abstract version of telling this amazing
Mhm.
story. Then everybody leaves other than 4, and we do Plaid, and Plaid only has 4. So that was the original plan. The original plan was, okay, we've got these 3 shows. This is how we're going to do it. These are the numbers we're using. This is how we keep it safe. Then we knew we wanted to do this concert outside at the beginning because we wanted to at least provide something outdoors in case there were people who wanted to be entertained, who wanted to support us, but were not ready to come into the theater.
Nice. That's really smart.
And so we thought, okay, well, we can do only one weekend, because if there's a lot of locations in Lincoln and North Woodstock that are enormous outdoor areas,
Yeah.
where we can set up shop, we can do a production, we can have a much larger audience, but have them socially distanced. We're talking like blankets and beach chairs, and that's what we're looking at. We're not building a theater outside. We didn't think that was worth it for one show. So then we were like, well, what are we going to do? And we thought about it and looked around us and said, well, we're right in the middle of the White Mountains. Why wouldn't we do the Sound of Music in the mountains? That only makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that opens the door to, okay, well, now let's look at this cast situation. We have 8 kids, or eight young actors. We also have our Impact Company, which, for those who don't know, is our touring children's theater, which we are still planning to do. That's only 5 actors, 5 professional actors that we hire in. They're also part of our bubble. So we said, let's, for the first time ever, bring the Impact actors into the main stage. Nice. So that gets us from 8 to 13. Now we have 13 actors. And so the last piece of that is we figured we would job in a Mother Abbess. So it wasn't some 21-year-old singing Climb Every Mountain. Right. And then we have to find 6 local children to be in the show. So we are adding some local people into that production. But again, there's a difference there because that production is outside and it's in concert, so we can appropriately distance them. So that is how we're handling that show, which is very different than how we're handling the other 3 shows that are in the theater and only utilizing our company. So, and again, we were kind of excited. Like, we thought to ourselves, wow, this is a season that people are going to recognize. You've got The Sound of Music, even though it's in concert. You've got Clue the musical, which maybe people don't know a lot about, but certainly know the name Clue.
Absolutely.
You've got Evita, and you've got Forever Plaid, both 2 amazing classics. So we were really excited about that because, again, a lot of theaters are looking at smaller titles that are not as well known. And that's amazing and wonderful when you have a subscription base that will follow you no matter what you do. But that's just not our situation up north. Our situation is that we rely heavily on vacationers, second homeowners, and they only come if they want to see that show.
Right.
So doing falsettos or A New Brain or, Fun Home, I don't know if those would sell simply because people don't know them. At least in our theater. Other theaters are different, but that's
How did you cast the shows? What was that process like?
We're still in it. We're still doing it. It's been very different this year. It's amazing how different it is. There are a lot of companies, a lot of cattle call auditions, such as NETCs, the A1s, Straw Hats.
They still had them?
They had them virtually.
Got you.
And that meant different things for different companies. Some A1s did actually a virtual event. So you still had to be there at 9 a.m. on this date and watch them, and they were live streamed.
Wow.
However, NETCs and Straw Hats went about it a little bit differently. They did more of an online database where you just have access to it and can watch it whenever you want. It obviously these were all the right choices, right? This is not the year to have live cattle call auditions. So I applaud them for, again, redefining themselves and figuring out how to do this. What's interesting as a producer is when you're looking at somebody on a screen, just like we're looking at each other right now, it's really different. You have no understanding of what their height is, what their build is. You don't get to see them interact with the pianist, and that tells you a lot sometimes. It's a very different environment. It's funny how much you rely on those things and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
I can't speak for other theaters, but I can tell you at Gene's Playhouse, I care equally about whether they are the right personality fit for our company as I do about their talent. Mm-hmm. And I say that because summer stock is a lot. You're crammed together with a lot of people. You have to live, eat, sleep, breathe them for this year it's only 9 weeks, but normally it's 12 to 14 weeks. Mm-hmm. That's a long time. And if you have the wrong personality fit, if you have somebody who is really negative or somebody who just really doesn't want to be there, it can spread quickly. Yeah. And that's a bad deal. So for me, it's equally about casting the right personalities as it is about the right talent. Mm-hmm. In these cattle call auditions, the way they're doing them right now, it's very easy to see the talent. You can easily see whether someone sings and whether they can act. Right. But you can't see a lot else, Yeah. So then you have to go into callback mode, which is on your own terms, which every theater does that differently. I've been sending audio tracks and sheet music and saying, hey, listen, we saw you at such and such. We think you're really talented. If you're interested in working with us, can you please put this on tape and send it to us? And then we'll set up an interview.
So what a protracted system. Jeez.
It takes about 3 times as long as it used to, which is why we're still in casting mode right now. Yeah. We are because it's just taking forever. It started in February, but we're still working on it. Because it's just, you have to get so much from these actors because first you have to pick them and go through all these databases, and going through the databases takes way longer than, so once you get through them and you've selected 10 or 15 actors that you really like, then you have to email them all individually and give them the materials and then ask, and some will be interested, some will not, some will have already taken a job.
Some won't reply ever.
Right. That's just the way it works, And then finally you get the videos back, some of them, and you start going through and deciding which ones you want to pursue. And then the next step is to set up a Zoom interview like this. That way you can, talk to them and you can see them read and you can give them direction and see how they take it and stuff. And it's just a very, and part of that is to test out their talent, but it's also to get to know them because you got to see if they're the right personality.
It's a huge component.
Huge.
I mean, it's like putting them on a submarine.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be even worse this year because this year we're really monitoring them. Yep, we have to make sure they're not going to the bars. We have to make sure they're not going to the, they really are. Yeah, it's just, and look, the vaccine news is extremely encouraging, right? We're all very excited about where the vaccine is and where it will be by this summer. I just think it's important for all of us to think of the vaccine as an added level of security. Right. We can't lighten our guidelines because of the vaccine.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We have to still do what we need to do because, obviously it's funny. People think of it this way. People are always like, well, because when you're talking to some of these actors and some of these, you're hiring your tech crew and stuff, they want to know what you're doing. They want to know how you're keeping them safe, which is a completely reasonable thing to want to know. So that's a long part of our interview process is telling them what we've got planned now, what we are waiting on, and when we will have the protocol completely finished. And I just think it's interesting because a lot of them are thinking to themselves, I want you to care about me. I want you to care about my safety and I'm worried you may not. Now I don't mean that about Gene's Playhouse. I just mean in general, that's their concern, right? Does this company care about my safety?
Right.
Well, look, if you this 26-year-old carpenter or whatever get if you get COVID, obviously the chances that you will get through it safely or at least okay are probably pretty high. Mm-hmm. But if you get COVID in our bubble,
right,
we shut down.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say our stakes are higher because obviously the worst case scenario for that poor carpenter who might get COVID is way worse. But the point is we are equally invested in your safety as you are.
Yeah.
because
At
we have
least.
just as much to lose, right?
At least. Yeah.
At least, yeah. So we are very, very, we want to make sure everything is 100% safe, and not just for our company, but for our full-time staff, for our amazing volunteers who usher, for, of course, our patrons who come in. I mean, we have to make sure we cannot have any breakout whatsoever this summer, because that could just, that could be detrimental, shutting down for a week or two.
Yeah. 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 You think? How about I heard about this collaborative event with
Yeah, Brian
Powerhouse.
Halpern. Yeah,
Yeah,
Powerhouse. Yeah.
Chat about that.
Yeah, very exciting. I mean, we're only a small piece of it. They obviously, Brian and Johanna have done amazing work in the area for well over a decade, and they have now created. They have been wanting to, I think, have a theater company of their, sort of their own that they could really,
Right.
do great work with. And this has just been a really, it's a little complicated because so many different companies are involved in it.
Mhm.
You've got the Colonial, you've got Spectacle, you've got Belknap Mill, and those are just the main ones. Then you've got collaborations with North Country Center for the Arts and Gene's Playhouse and Concord and all that. So it's a lot, but I think that's great because that means you have a lot of companies sort of helping fight for you, right? I mean, that's what makes it really great. It is, our part of it is simply one show, and you're very familiar with that show. We are bringing Christmas Carol there. We finally, after doing Christmas Carol for what, 2 or 3 years, we kind of put we sort of finished it. We sort of finished it out and said, look, we need a break from Christmas Carol. It's a huge production. It's got, and this, it's got enormous technical value. It's a huge set. It's, special effects, lighting, crazy, and sound, all that. And the problem for Gene's Playhouse is in the winter, when we would do that, we don't have staff. We don't have full-time staff, because we hire in for the summer, and then we don't have a lot of local experienced people who can come in and put sets up and run your lighting and run your sound. So it's a tough time for us to do something so demanding. And so from that perspective, we decided to kind of halt it. And that's when we created White Mountains Christmas, because White Mountains Christmas was much more manageable for us to do on our own in our venue. But we kept all of Christmas Carol because we thought eventually we returned to it, or who knows, And so I just didn't think we'd be returning to it this early. This quickly. So Brian reached out to me and said, hey, listen, we don't have a Christmas Carol in our area. And, why not just do it here? And we said, okay, let's look at it. Let's take a look. So, the goal is to, we're going to rework we always rework the script a little bit each time to make it a little, keep improving upon it. And, but I mean, it's smart on their part because, not only does our Christmas Carol have a bit of a following, but we already have all the sets, costumes, lights, special. I mean, we have it all. That's just a huge amount of money that you don't have to worry about. Yeah. So it made perfect sense for them to reach out to us specifically and ask about, that version and us and collaborating to do that. We do have we have some actors who have done it over the years who will likely want to continue to do it. And we're open to that, but we're also open to auditioning locally and seeing just what the Laconia Meredith talent pool looks like and who wants to be part of the show. And obviously we need kids who will all be local, and I said to Brian, I said, I know you may think that in my head I've got this, like, I want it to be this because it's always this, but I said, it's been a couple years. I'm open to new people, looking at things differently, trying it, a whole new way. So for me, doing the show and casting it and working with the actors for Christmas Carol that's the easy part. The challenge that we always struggled with at Gene's was the technical piece. Right. But Brian has Tyler Sosi Productions on, like, they're already signed up to do it. So they're handling sound, lighting, sets. Really? Yes, they're handling all of that. Wow. So they're going to, we have the set, but they're going to handle bringing it in, putting it up, and then working with me on the lighting, working on the sound. So that was always the piece that it was just too much on my plate. And that's why we decided to give it up. But now we've got Tyler, who's brilliant, in his group. So we're not worried about that. And Gabe Bean has already come in to help to be sort of the costume coordinator, to take the costumes we
Great.
have and to, figure out whatever, because obviously the costumes are going to have to be altered to fit the new actors, and we may have to add a few more in and things like that. So that'll be on her.
Yeah.
And hopefully Val Wisniewski will be back as stage manager, who has been our stage manager for the last 3 productions of it. So
Yeah.
she knows that show like the back of her hand. So we're actually feeling really confident about this. We're really excited.
Yeah.
And again, as always, hey, if it's a success, we want to make it an annual tradition.
Yeah. Well,
And
staging it at the Colonial could be a great move. I mean,
right?
Just the momentum of having that new theater open.
Yes.
They're going to be the first time it'll be a Christmas show in there. I mean, a lot can come from this.
Absolutely. That's what we're hoping. That's what we think. And that was the catalyst behind it. And we are really hopeful that it becomes an annual tradition. It's going to be crazy for me because we're still doing at Gene's Playhouse White Mountains Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like these 2 shows, and we had to be very careful when we selected the dates to make sure that I could do both of them. So it's going to be a little crazy because at Gene's Playhouse we're doing White Mountains Christmas, and then 2 weeks later at the Colonial we've got this joint project of Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
But
some potential overlap in actors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because a lot of the people who are in White Mountains Christmas, I took from Christmas Carol. Right. But I think it'll be great. I think it'll be okay. I mean, that's the great thing about White Mountains Christmas is it's a much easier, simpler productions. As you know, we can put that up fairly quickly, very little rehearsal. So that will be treated more like a professional schedule, where we just put it together with like a week of rehearsal and 1 day of tech. Yeah. Whereas Christmas Carol at Laconia will be treated a little bit more like a community schedule with, probably, I don't know, somewhere between say 5 and 8 weeks of rehearsal and a normal tech week. And
rehearsal, where would you do that? Can you?
So that's Brian's problem, not mine.
Okay.
But no, I kid. I mean, it is, but I kid. He is planning. His belief is that between the space at the mill and the actual Colonial itself on nights that it's not in use, we should be able to rehearse right there. Okay. So that should be pretty good. And then the idea is once we've gotten everything there, like sets, costumes, all that, there's storage under the theater that we're planning to use so that we don't have to keep lugging it back and forth every year. The idea is most of it, not all of it, most of it will be able to live there, which I think is just going to make a really big difference. I mean, that's the thing. You remember the first time we ever did it in Concord, it was like, whoa, right? Yeah. And then it got easier every time because we were like, well, now we know what the lights are. Now we know how this puts together. So this year, this 2021 will be really exciting, but it'll be a lot of work. But then if it is successful and we continue to do it, it should be cake the future years because we'll already have all the lights written. We'll already have the sets and everything right there, ready to go. We'll already know how this all works in Laconia. So we're really excited about it. I mean, it's definitely going to be a really good experience, I think. And we'll have a lot of it's a fire truck. Sorry.
Okay.
And we'll have I just think it's going to be a really exciting, fun project, and I'm looking forward to revive. It's one of my favorite shows, so I love doing it.
People like it. People really love it.
It's a great show. It's an absolutely great show, and it's a wonderful story. And I always am trying to, make edits and changes to get it back to like what it's really about and to get it to resonate with today's everyman. Mm-hmm. I think we all have a little Scrooge in us, right? Especially maybe in the last year. So it's nice to connect to that character and see why he is what he is and why, what he needs to get over in order to reconnect with the human race, we're not all going to see the ghost of our dead partners and a bunch of spirits coming to us, but at least if we can understand why he inevitably gets to where he does, maybe we can take a little piece of that with us and
I agree.
Take a little look at our own lives.
I agree.
So I love that story. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know you got to go here shortly, so I'll let you go. Anything you want to recap like after that? Is anything else that you want to bring up?
Oh boy. I think that's pretty much it. So we're in the midst of hiring and right now for the summer season. Then we will open our reduced and unique, interesting summer season. Then we plan as of right now to continue through the fall like we normally would.
Great.
So that would mean presenting acts such as comedians and cover bands. Then we would get into Christmas time where we have our 2 Christmas shows this year. Then we'd shut down and start all over again. And hopefully by 2022, fingers crossed, we're even more back to normal, and doing bigger shows and, back to our old, our ways of the way we always used to work. So we're hopeful. I think to some degree, this has been such a hard, year for everybody, as we've already discussed. I think for Gene's Playhouse, in some ways, this is a little bit of a rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We've been working really hard to rebuild it and restructure it and make things just even better. And I'm not sure everybody knew whether we'd make it through the pandemic. And now that we have, and that we're coming back stronger than ever, because it's given us an opportunity to get ahead of the ball rather than chasing it.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of our planning.
Yeah, playing offense instead of defense.
Exactly. So to some degree, we are really looking forward to this being a rebirth. And, just really, again, we've planned and we've, budget wise, we've assumed the worst. So anything above that is going to really be good for us this year, and we're so excited to be back on the horse. It's just, after having a relatively, obviously this past year was very stressful, but I had so much less to do this past year, and so my scheduling, working from home and not going up as much and not, it's been very weird and to some degree a little relaxing, dare I say. So to get back on the horse, there was a little part of me that was like, am I going to be okay with this? But I have to say, I am chomping at the bit, especially now that we've got the momentum going and we're hiring and we're getting excited now. And I just can't wait. really can't. I'm so excited to be not only working with actors and creating art again, but also seeing the patrons who I miss,
I know.
And just seeing their faces and seeing, getting to talk to them, after the show as they're leaving the theater. It'll be a little different this year. We'll talk to them outside, not in the lobby, but I'm just looking forward to seeing people happy again.
Yeah. Well, brother, I appreciate your time. And I got to get to the soup kitchen. They're closing soon.
Yeah, you better hurry. I hear they have the Ray special.
Jello and applesauce, baby.
There you go. Well, don't worry. We'll see you in 2022. Plus, you got White Mountain's Christmas.
All right.
We'll get you back into White Mountain's Christmas this year.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. All right, man. Thanks, Joel. I really do.
All right.
Time.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.